Go in 5, 4, 3. Well, I'll wait till Lando's ready.
Sorry. I'm trying to get my light settings set up.
You look
Now
good.
it's a bright light. I was a
Well,
little orange a minute ago.
you look
Orange
fine.
is not,
At least
orange
you're
is
not
not good
Edward
right
Cullen like me. So this is okay. All right, hold on. I got to stop this and delete this and try this again because there's way too much crap audio right there. All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
now. So there's a global pandemic. A virus is sweeping across our world. And almost overnight, society has changed. Which new drug should I hoard next? Who's wearing the coolest mask? And what the hell is going on in Seattle? If you haven't considered these questions yet, you will soon. And we'll be here with you, your guides, your personal whatever, on this journey.
Sherpas.
This descent into chaos. Yeah, Sherpas is exactly what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure. Anyway, here we are.
Here we are. It's goat time. It's staring at goats with Steven, Jacob, and Lando, your three goobers who have somehow decided that this is a field we want to become experts in, and then we want to pass that knowledge off to you.
I feel
Yes,
like we are at this point.
I think you're not wrong because we're the only ones that seem to give an absolute a crap about COVID-19.
Yep.
In our general areas. Like there's like
Mhm.
5 people I meet that are like, yes, this disease is bad and we should all stay indoors until it goes away. Everybody else is
Yeah.
like, what? No, we good. We good. It ain't a problem. I'm going back to school in August and stuff. Like,
I'm going
whatever.
shopping right now.
Yeah, I got my hair cut and licked a doorknob. I'm fine. I ain't scared of no COVID. And then you realize
picked
they're
up my
in
crafts
Texas.
at the Hobby Lobby.
yes, we're going back to Hobby Lobby because Hobby Lobby's protected by Jesus power.
That's right.
Or you could be in
It's all the
Texas
protection
where
we need.
cases have risen by 4,000 in a single day. Y'all, this disease is not gone. It's not going anywhere yet. It's
No.
still around. This podcast will continue and continue to discuss all the trials and tribulations related to COVID-19. I appreciate everyone being here as part of this podcast and willing to listen and try to get some information. We have a action-packed show for you tonight. We have a bunch of really great news. We're going to deep dive in some conversations. We got an email from a good friend of the network, and I think we're going to cover all that stuff. We're going to have a good time. But first of all, Lando, let's start with you in the roundtable because your note is the most interesting to me, and you happen to be in a pretty wild area at the moment.
Yeah, so for anybody who does not know, I live in the Northwest. Used to live in Seattle and still live very close to it. And for anybody who also has not heard, I guess this is just the new place to be. You know, there's no government, there's no police, there's no leadership. It's pure anarchy. It's and for everyone who doesn't know, it's 7 blocks, I believe, something like that, have literally left. And that's what also another thing that a lot of people don't realize: the police left this area when they suspected something was going to happen. Nothing ever did, and they don't respond to calls anymore. They've just literally abandoned the whole area, not just the CHOP, the Capitol Hill occupied. What it was occupied, whatever the
It
T
was
stands for.
autonomous zone, but they had to change that because if they were truly
Autonomous
autonomous,
refers to secession
they
and
would have to
becoming an
succeed.
independent. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not what's happening. It's a lot of people misunderstand. It's a social experiment. Basically, the police left, and that neighborhood is policing itself. So it's interesting though to see all that happening. You know, kind of front and center to me at least. I just can just talk to friends that are there and checking it out every day. It's safe, by the way. There's nothing going on. It's basically a big art exhibit,
So it's
Seattle
like
fashion.
it's like
But it's
Burning Man
interesting.
in the middle of Seattle.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Okay,
exactly what it is. People are
lots of
looking out for
drugs.
each other, and whether it's sustainable or not, I guess, is the question. You know, the people are trying to make it the type of thing that can just last. You know, it can just be a thing, and to some extent, it's working. I don't know. We'll see what happens though. But it regardless of how you look at it, it's interesting. You know, to basically to see in real life, you know, this sort of thing happening. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
think
I'm interested to see what happens next and where this all goes. And I don't know. There's a lot of ways this could happen, or a lot of things that could happen next, I should say.
yeah. Have people who are doing this seen the movie The Village? Because as far as I'm concerned, any attempt at a utopia generally fails at some point, and I'm grateful that it's doing really well, and I hope that it continues to do well. I'm curious of how long something like this can last. How many disputes can be resolved amicably? And I'm not saying you require police to resolve disputes, like every dispute, but I'm curious what self-policing looks like long term. But I'm also
Yeah,
yeah, I'm also happy that someone's trying, because without
yeah,
trying, we
it's
can't
something
know.
new.
Yeah, so
Exactly, it's
it's
something new, and that's the really fun thing. Regardless of what happens, it why not try something else? At the
Mhm.
very least,
yeah.
I
It's
think
a,
it's a cool idea. We'll see what happens.
have they covered any COVID-19 related news to that zone and people mingling? Is there a mandatory mask
Very
policy that
little,
can't
but
be enforced?
almost everybody out in Seattle that's doing any sort of protest or anything like that, they're not trying to and almost everybody's wearing masks. It's actually been interesting to watch all the marches happening around here. They're really long and not necessarily like no density to them. Like they may stretch like 3-4 miles long, and it may only be a few 100,000 people when it looks like it should be a million, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's weird that everyone's out and about protesting, though, seems to be paying attention. I don't know,
Yeah, no, that's
from what I
really
can tell.
interesting. Yeah, keep us updated if you do find out anything, like, because I
Hey,
am
this thing is
curious of.
changing by the day. We'll see
Yeah,
what's going on next week.
yeah, in a week
Yeah.
it could be in a whole new world. Jacob, let's move on to you. Let's get your week. How have you been?
So my week's a little bit different than than Lando's.
Yeah, I bet.
So, Steven, this is the first week in this whole COVID-19 craziness that I have truly felt pressured by the people around me and by society and societal norms, right? So, for those who don't know, Stephen and I did have to make a quick jaunt up to West Virginia this weekend again. We did so by holding our bladders and driving for 4.5, 5 hours straight and refilling using gas cans full of gas. And I mean, we really
And
tried
Gatorade
to,
bottles.
yeah, we really tried to minimize our contact. But when we got there, we had a little bit of help from some family members of the in-laws. And I love these family members. These are salt of the earth kind of folks. But the minute you see them, you've got to go give them a hug, right? And it's hard not to. And what do you do in that situation? Because you weren't around them, you weren't quarantined with them, you haven't been around them, you haven't seen them. But society demands that we give each other hugs to say hello. I had a friend of mine whose son graduated this week, and he was like, "Man, you should come out and come to a barbecue that we're having." And I'm like, something, I appreciate that, but I don't.
But I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And I've known his son since he was 5 years old, and he's graduating this week, and I feel awful that I'm not going to be able to celebrate with him. But at the same time, it's kind of like that pressure. It's like, yeah, come on out, and I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not going to put myself in that compromised position. I've got, you know, th- lots of reasons why I have personally made that decision to quarantine, and so it got me thinking. Yeah, well, and another thing that happened, my mother has not met her grandchild yet, right? And the reason why is because she hasn't quarantined. She may say she's quarantined, but she hasn't. So that brings me to my question for everybody. What exactly is your definition of quarantined? Because my definition is you're not going anywhere. You're not putting yourself in a compromised position. You're doing everything possible to avoid human contact and or contact in a closed environment. If you are in that situation, you're taking unbelievably the maximum amount of precaution that you could possibly take, right? That's my definition of quarantined. And that's what I think my crew or my people around me that are in this quarantine with me have adopted that same definition. But everybody I feel like has a different definition. Whenever I talk to my mother, I'm like, well, what you been doing? She's like, well, I've been quarantined. I ain't gone out. Well, except to go to Hobby Lobby. I went there yesterday, and I went to the bookstore this morning, and I went out to the parks this afternoon, and I went to the grocery store yesterday to pick up some food, and but I've been quarantined, and so I'm trying to understand what do people think quarantine means?
That's not any definition of quarantine as I understand it. That seems to be the opposite. My definition
Yeah.
of quarantine for me is my groceries are delivered. My shopping
Yeah.
is delivered. Literally everything I have is delivered. And the only people I interact with are you and Ashley and my in-laws. That's it. Like that is my social circle at this moment. And beyond, like, other than that, there's no, I walk around the neighborhood, but I don't like stop and shake hands with anybody. I just wave from a distance if I know them and just keep going. My 81-year-old neighbor, I stood 10 feet from him and chatted with him the other day. That's quarantine.
That's right.
That means don't go to work. Don't, stay home. Lando, what about you?
Yeah, so quarantine to us, I guess, especially since Chris worked at the hospital and we really did need to quarantine for the, but essentially for us, it is stock up on food for 2 weeks and do not go anywhere, do not do anything. I mean, granted, we have, we can do things on our property here, so that's a bit different. We actually can just, and for most of March, we literally did not go anywhere.
Yeah.
Except for Chris going to work. I didn't even leave the island for 2 months straight.
Oh, gosh.
So that to me is quarantine. I mean, it's the whole idea of you literally do not go anywhere and do anything out in public that would bring you into contact. But that does not include things like driving around and going hiking and being outdoors. In my mind, as long as you are not around people in any sort of social setting, that's really the only thing that matters. So, but again, we live seconds from hiking and all sorts of stuff, so we can do that.
Makes sense.
So I feel like all of those definitions make sense, but I'm trying to find people whose definitions don't make sense to me, because to me, going to Hobby Lobby and picking up some craft materials and then swinging by the bookstore to pick up some books and then swinging by the grocery store to pick up some groceries and then swinging by the park to go on a nice long walk and bring the kids there so they can play on the playground. That to me doesn't seem quarantine, guys. But when talking to people, that's the definition I get as quarantined. So if you guys have a different definition, I would love to hear from you. And hell, I'd love to interview you just to understand what those differences are. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And by the way, so Ace just mentioned that her dad has COVID, and daggone. I'm sorry to hear. I am so sorry to hear. That's tough. Keep us posted on how he's doing, and make sure that you stay healthy.
Oh geez, yeah, that's no good. Well, yeah, Ace, the entire goat community is rooting for your dad there. That's
we all here, yeah.
That
yeah.
sucks.
But hey, as for me, my story's not a whole lot different than Jacob's.
Sorry, man, I stole your thunder.
No, it's
Steven, no one really asked you anyway.
No, I know no one really cares. I do have a different, like a little bit of a different slant on it, in that I did the same thing Jacob did. I spent the last weekend in West Virginia and being pressured in some degree, not even pressured in a real like you should hug me kind of way, but just that social norms like Jacob was talking about. But I've spent the last few days kind of being paranoid because I'm like, I know these people we interacted with care very little about the virus in terms of what it can do. I mean, zero. We have 2 people that we know that work at nursing homes that came over and helped us and complained about having to wear a mask. Like one particular person said they shouldn't, having to wear a mask, I believe is what she said. Having to wear a mask is the worst thing they could have you do, because you're always touching your face. And I'm like, no, the research shows that like it's literally the only thing keeping us from just being wiped out. Like in terms of everyone getting it is the mask. But you hear that from people. Like, what's one of the first things I heard when people started wearing masks? You fiddle with it all the time. You have your hands in your face. That argument didn't go away, even with all the data science that we have. It just didn't. It's still there, and people are still using it. And then we also are hanging out with somebody we know good and well is happy to go, something's going to get you. So they don't care, right? Yep. And we're hanging around with them. And we have no choice because they have to be there. We have to be there. And if Jacob and I didn't have the help this weekend, we would die. We would have just had an absolute breakdown because the amount of help they gave us was worth, its weight in gold.
It's worth possibly dying.
Yeah, it's worth it. You'd have no idea. So, we both kind of just, at that point, we gave in to the statistics of the state of West Virginia. And that was did. Yeah, that was like 11 cases out of 100,000 or something, right? Like it's fairly low. So we just had to lean on that.
I hope none of them came from Lewisburg or anywhere around that area because sounds good.
They didn't. And the thing is though, even if they did, the tests are all being done in Charleston and Morgantown. We would have no idea.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're getting their data from. And it's like, oh shoot, what does this mean? But at this point, we either have it or we don't. And there's nothing we could do about it at the time. Yeah. So and it's weird how you rationalize because I'm like, ooh, do we really want them over? We need them over. West Virginia only has 11 out of 100,000 cases. This is probably okay.
Statistically, we'll be fine.
Well, so what's interesting is that we didn't even have a choice. They just showed up. And we're like, oh, hey, hugs. Shit.
Jacob immediately looks at me. He's like, we're going to
ambush.
Are you going to hug him? I'm like, I have to. I don't know. They're going to want it. And then one of them smokes all over the place. I was choking to death anyway. So it's like, I'm going to die. Like, it's just this one way or the other. This trip is going to take me out. But man, it was just one of those things. So it's a really weird place to be where you feel like you've got, you got this pressure that's just because of society, not necessarily because they're telling you to hug them. If we'd have said, Jacob, if we would have said, I just really don't want to get too close because both of us don't know where we could have been, they probably would have been like, oh, they would have thought it was weird. Probably been like,
right.
Okay. But it would have been a little bit stressful.
It would have. It would have definitely made the situation more stressful. But what did make even more stressful was coming home that day. We were reading the news and we saw that 28 people had been diagnosed from a church that had reopened in I think it was Lewisburg, right? Mm-hmm. Or was one town in West Virginia. So I'm like, no!
I know, right? They spread out everywhere. Luckily, Lewisburg is far enough away that most people aren't traveling to go to Walmart. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. I'm still holding on to that. But anyway, that's the round table. Let's get into the isolation report. This is where we're going to rapid fire through some headlines, give you the latest and greatest in what's going on in COVID-19 news out in the world. First up, Nathan's hot dog contest to take place without an audience. In an effort to adhere to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention social distancing guidelines, the event will feature only 1/3 the participants compared to past years, with 5 competitors instead of 15, included in this year's field is 12-time champion Joey Chestnut, who will be defending his crown after devouring 71 hot dogs in 2019. That's in 10 minutes, you guys. 71 hot dogs in 10
That's
minutes.
Insanity.
Yeah, right? That's insane. 2020 has been a year for the history books, and the realization that this storied July 4th tradition would be able to occur is a great feeling, Nathan's famous senior vice president James Walker said. With that being said, our country and our world has endured so much in the last couple of months that we'd be remiss if we didn't use this moment to honor those that have done so much for each of us during this time. The contest will honor essential workers in food banks in New York City, which has been the epicenter of coronavirus outbreak in the U.S., with more than 17,000 deaths being reported in that city alone.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So 16 friends test positive after a night out at a Florida bar. group of 16 friends all tested positive for coronavirus after a night out at a recently opened Florida bar. The friends want to remind people that the pandemic is real and still very much here. We want to raise awareness and get ahead of it. Kat Layton said, we want to tell people that it's really not ready for what we thought it was ready for, so it's too soon. None of that made much sense, but that's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, the virus was out of sight, out of mind, since they didn't know anyone that had contacted it and heard from their mayor and their governor that everything was fine. But within days, they began to get
Funny
sick.
how that works.
Yeah,
Right.
it is, isn't it? The women said that they are confident they contracted the virus on the outing. Since then, they said they have been messaged by strangers who also got sick after visiting the same bar in the same weekend. They want others to be more cautious and take advantage of looser restrictions. I feel foolish. It's too soon, says the lady. Though Florida is continuing to reopen from coronavirus restrictions, the state recorded a record number of cases on Monday, according to the State Department of Health. I think it was, 2,600 in a
Yeah.
single day? That's pretty
Yeah.
legit.
It's not going down.
No.
What a tragic story. So let's make this a little more fun. So, fuck Florida. New York City is the place to be because they are officially recommending glory holes for safe
Glorio!
distance hookups. So this is the best thing that's happened all year, literally. So New York City's health department has taken the surprising steps of endorsing glory holes as a way of having safer sex during the coronavirus pandemic. A safe sex guide put out by the city encourages people to take all possible precautions to prevent transmission of COVID-19 during sexual encounters. Among the advice includes a suggestion: make it a little kinky, quote unquote, be creative with sexual positions and physical barriers, like walls that allow sexual contact while preventing close face to face contact. It also suggests that sexual encounters are best carried out in a quote unquote larger, more open, and well ventilated space. While shedding your clothing during hookups is generally expected, the guy makes it clear that the one thing you should keep on your face is a mask. And of course, as the virus can be transmitted through contact with the mouth, people are warned to avoid kissing and rimming.
Oh, good. So
Important. This is
See,
great information.
this is what
I
this
think
is
we
like
all
that
now know
story.
exactly what to do going forward.
I know. I'm gonna go buy a
Go to
nice
your
piece of
nearest rest
plywood.
area.
Yes.
Drill a hole.
Yeah, go get a plywood, drill a hole, and go to town. It's fine.
Yeah.
so-
I need one of those
You're
big
off to the races.
dryer vent holes. No, just kidding.
I bet. It's just a big wide mouth bottle hole. Human trials expected to start next month for COVID-19 treatment derived from cow's blood. A South Dakota company expects to start human trials next month for a COVID-19 antibody treatment derived from the plasma of cows. But these aren't just any cows. Scientists genetically engineered the animals to give them an immune system that's part human. That way, the animals produce disease-fighting human antibodies to COVID-19, which are then turned into a drug to attack the virus. These animals are producing neutralizing antibodies that kill the novel coronavirus in the laboratory, Eddie Sullivan, CEO of SAB Biotherapeutics, said in a statement to CNN. We're eager to advance to the clinic as we move forward in the regulatory process with hopes of bringing this potential COVID-19 therapeutic to patients in need of a solution. The company did not say how many people would be studied in the clinical trials or how long they would take. But, hey, you could have some bovine medicine coming your way.
Yeah,
the near
might take a
future.
little longer.
Divine bovine medicine.
Divine.
don't-
By the way, you guys are there are a lot of medicines that are of bovine origin. I mean, albumin, they make BSA. It's a protein that covers a lot of different glassware and other things. So yeah, I mean, you could be taking medicine that is derived from bovine.
Yep.
Be
Next,
okay. The
the
milk's
next
good.
story. What's that?
I said the milk is good.
That's right, baby. Dexamethasone to the rescue. The low dose steroid treatment, dexamethasone, is a major breakthrough in the fight against the deadly virus, UK experts say. The drug is part of the world's largest trial testing existing treatments to see if they are also working for the coronavirus. It apparently cuts the risk of death by a third for patients on a ventilator. And for those on oxygen, it cuts deaths by a fifth. Had the drug been used to treat patients in the UK from the start of the pandemic, up to 5,000 lives could have been saved, researchers said. The UK government has 2,000 courses of the drug in stockpile and says the NHS will make dexamethasone available to its patients. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, that's good news.
Good for them.
We need some good
What
news.
a government. What a government.
Yeah.
So, in even worse news, the unfortunate reality is that airlines are banning alcohol on planes in response to just this makes no sense to me. So, alcohol sales may have boomed during lockdown, but our return to air travel will be an altogether more sobering experience. That's for damn sure. Airlines include EasyJet, KLM Europe, Delta Airlines, American Airlines, Virgin Australia. It's too long of a list to begin with. It's part of widespread revision of the industry's food and drink service to minimize interaction between crew and passengers and to ensure a safer journey for all. Many airlines are limiting drink options to water only. And as face masks must be kept on at all times, apart from eating and drinking, this is part of a way to minimize passengers lingering over their refreshments for longer than necessary. What a joke. I'm never going back to travel as a
I'm sorry, Zafo, by the way. This probably affects you more than anyone.
This probably hurts our traveling listeners more than anybody. But how does feeding them water only somehow protect them from, like, if I just swing by once and give you
technically that would make you want to take your mask off less. You're not going to want to drink more.
That's probably true.
And also, they could probably make it through really quick if everybody's just drinking water and not drinking their Jack and Cokes or ginger ales or Diet Cokes or whatever.
Yeah, they're not standing around breathing around you while they're getting your drink together. That kind of, I guess I could buy that, but flying sucks now. Flying sucked before.
This is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, but now it sucks worse. So if you're flying, best of luck to you, and you'll be okay. All right. Let's deep dive into some of these stories, you guys. We took a look at the headlines, and now it's time to take a couple of them and just see what kind of conversations we can have around this. And the first one we want to dive into is the 16 friends.
The
16 friends who were out at a bar in Florida, which I think all of us would say, if you watch the news for 5 minutes on any given day, you know that Florida is the worst place to decide to go out in.
Yeah, of course it would be Florida.
I felt bad because I think we were in their chat room in our little note group in Discord. We passed notes to the show, like, this is a candidate story, this is a candidate story, this is a candidate story. And as I'm scrolling through Reddit, like, looking for coronavirus related stories, like 6 or 7 of them are Florida stories, and they're all different, but they all happened in Florida. And I'm like, okay, Florida's always the butt of a joke. It has been since the dawn of time. But, like, we really are, like,
but it
Floridians.
Lives up to it. It's not just a stereotype.
Right. And I mean, to some degree, stereotypes exist because there's plausible it happened in a wider swath of some, event, like a state. You see it a lot from Florida, and then Florida lives up to the hype all the time. And you kind of are like, what's going on? So I don't know. I don't know what possessed him to go out, but this was my sister's scare when she got coronavirus. She had been going to the park and hanging out with some friends, and I think they were all trying to be relatively safe, but at the same time, if you go out somewhere, it's not a good idea. Now, she was making good decisions. There was a birthday party, and she's like, nah, I'm going to stay away from the birthday party. But,
I have some thoughts on this one, and this is more Florida specific. So this is coming on the heels of the governor announcing how we have defeated coronavirus. We punched it in the face with patriotism, baby. I don't know if he didn't say that. Who said the punch it in the face with patriotism? Somebody did. I don't remember.
Know.
But
it's great.
But no, he bragged pretty heavily about defeating the virus. He was standing next to Mike Pence and talking about how, we're going to do this Republican National Convention here, baby. Woo, woo. And we've defeated this virus. And, This also comes on the heels of them reopening. They went into their phase 2 of reopening, so the barbershops and the bars and all that kind of good jazz reopened a couple weeks ago. Now we're seeing like 2,600 cases a day, every day. And it's just like, wow, this is insane. It's so bad that there are some businesses, some bars in Jacksonville, the place that they are now going to hold the Republican National Convention in August, that are closing voluntarily. Bars are going, oh, guys, we're done here. 2,600 people drink, no, we're done here. And they're closing voluntarily. So what gives? I mean, the governor's already announced they're not going to shut down for a second time. That he's refusing to do it. So I'm not seeing this trend going anywhere in Florida. Are you guys?
This is gonna be bad.
Yeah,
If they're
I don't.
not going to take any precautions.
If you're just going to straight up ignore the science and you're going to invite the Republican National Convention, and to be fair, if they were inviting the Democrat National Convention, I would be just as bothered because it's still a whole bunch of humans insisting that they don't wear masks showing up in your town. Because you're talking about people flying in from all over the country. This is a delegate count. This is like
DNC not have their convention.
They're not going to have one. Yeah, they're
Republican
just
candidate.
Right.
Is there a reason for this to happen?
Don't make me talk about it, Landon, but I have a feeling
let's not go there.
It's for a giant ego boost because somebody involved really wants to hear people cheer while he's in a big place. That's the whole reason. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it because there's no point. I mean, you know who the candidate is. What are you even doing other than getting together to slap each other on the butt and say, good game? And say, we're all here for America. Like, okay, so is everyone else.
Same reason you go to a sports event.
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally why we're having NBA games starting up soon too.
At Disney World.
In the world of Disney, baby. But no. So, guys, I don't want to hate on Florida because I don't feel like Florida we can really hate on here. Because if you look at North Carolina trends, North Carolina is the exact same. So let's not pretend that this is isolated to Florida. North Carolina is going through the exact same shit right now.
But North Carolina on Friday, at least in the city of Raleigh, is mandating masks. At 4 p.m. on Friday, the city of Raleigh is going to begin requiring masks for all people in restaurants or wherever social distancing is not possible, or not. They're not able to meet those requirements. Yeah, you're right. And Lando, I wanted to tell you this. My mom called me the other day and she said a lady came into her office. She works at a doctor type office, so people come in and she has to screen them, make sure they don't have COVID. People come in without masks. She has to send them back out. Like, no, you can't be in here without a mask. You have to leave. So a lady comes in. She's like, not wearing a mask. Mom's like, do you have a mask? I hate to have to ask you, but it's a rule, and you gotta put one on because my mom doesn't want to confront people. And she's like, oh, yes, I have one. And she pulled it out, and it had diamond sequins. It was like a normal.
Yes.
It was a normal.
I was about to say, now that it's mandated, we're about to see fashion trends, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yep. She saw two
You're going
of
to
these.
have to color coordinate and sequins and bedazzling. Oh,
yeah.
Wait.
What was this? We skipped the story a couple weeks ago about the trikini. That was the bikini that had the matching mask. Guys, go out. Ladies, sorry, go out and get your trikinis.
Yeah, with your bikini plus mask. This lady, so she had, it was like a normal paper mask. Mom was like, it wasn't even fancy. It wasn't like an N95. It was just paper, and she just put little sequins on it. And she's like, well, if we got to wear them, we might as well make them look nice. And she's like, this lady was like 75. And then she saw another lady who had a checkered outfit, like checkered shoes, checkered pants, checkered top, checkered mask. It was a full outfit designed together to coordinate. Amazing. So I'm like, it's happening, Lando. You were right. You were 100% right. People are driving fashion forward. Thanks to
I'm going to be right behind them. I'm starting to look for new masks now.
That's awesome. So coming up next in our deep dive, I wanted to talk, or Jacob brought this up earlier. Jacob being the Jacob and Landon, you both are kind of meat masters of barbecue.
Yeah, baby.
Masters of your meat. So is it safe to have a barbecue? Jacob, you can drive this guy.
Yeah, so I'll read the story, and this is what kind of prompted me to start thinking about this, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. But The article starts out by saying, if restaurants are reopening for dine-in service again, surely it must be safe to eat outdoors, right? Not so fast. Experts who all agree gatherings could be one of the summer's biggest hazards. There's no one size fits all to whether or not you can host or attend a summer barbecue or any other gathering. First, it's important to consider the size of your gathering. How big is too big, I think, is an important question to ask. None of the doctors spoken to were able to provide specific host to guest ratios since there are so many variables at play. But according to some chief pediatric doctor, if your party is too big, is if you can't easily see everyone from where you're standing. Alternatively, if you get to a party and it seems way bigger than you were anticipating, it's okay to go home. When you invite people, consider contact tracing and overall health of guests. Also consider not having shared dishes and avoid foods that promote bacterial growth, such as things containing mayonnaise. That is their recommendation. Me personally, I mean, I got invited to a barbecue this weekend. I don't have any plans on going.
Did you avoid mayonnaise? What a joke. No one's going to do that. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
let me just
potato
not have a
salad.
barbecue.
Yeah.
With no mayonnaise.
No mayonnaise. That's it. Yeah. That's not a
mean,
barbecue then.
I make it a
That's a
personal
deal
rule
breaker
to
for you,
avoid
is that what it is?
mayonnaise anyway.
What
But
if the mayonnaise stays in the bottle?
I mean,
or how quickly do you have to eat the mayonnaise
All the
before
mayonnaise.
it gets, yeah.
I'll take,
What's
ice cream scoop to the mayonnaise jar and just, that way you can eat it in big lumps. I'm gonna vomit
with your
the
fries?
God, no. Who dips
Isn't that in
fries
Holland or
mayonnaise?
somewhere Dutch? Yeah, I think that's.
I think the
Holland that
Brits
does
do
that.
Somewhere in Europe, yeah.
I think the Brits do mayonnaise and chips and mayonnaise.
You know
Blech.
damn well it's not in America.
But you never.
We
should.
need our potato salad.
At barbecues, you don't eat the potato salad. You don't know where that's been sitting. You don't know if it's been outside. There's a restaurant up the street. Stephanie got potato salad once. I was like, you shouldn't do that. You don't know where that's been sitting in a heat lamp for like the last 7 to 8 hours. Gross. This is just growing funk on it.
I think the easiest thing to do is take the Asia street food mentality. If it was not something you saw cooked on the spot, then it's not something you should probably eat.
That's
But
probably
you
if
fair.
it's
Good idea.
barbecue, that's the whole point. That food, eat it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, brisket will get up to 205 degrees as an internal temperature, somewhere between 200 and 205. Zapo knows what I'm talking about.
More than enough to.
Yeah, so you're pretty safe on a brisket hit. But you're right. If you're talking about potatoes or anything else like that, yeah, I'm not worried about the food necessarily. I'm worried about the social
The
interaction.
people.
So
Yeah.
what do you guys think about this? Because they were talking about how big is too big. I mean, we talked earlier about 10 being the limit, right? Now we're trying to bump it up to 25. Is 25 too many?
I think that if you don't know where they've been for the past 2 weeks and you can't trace everywhere that guest has gone and who they've interacted with, they don't get invited. That's the bottom line. It doesn't have anything to do with size. It has everything to do with the people. Who in particular you're inviting. I would have a barbecue with you. If I talked to Wally and knew where he went, I would have a barbecue with him. I would have a barbecue with Lando. Our good buddy Anthony, I wouldn't have a barbecue with him because I know where he's been in the last week or two. Not because I don't love him, but because I know where he's been.
It's a logical decision.
Yeah, I think and people, I think what we're working ourselves up to is like how do we get past this idea of being offended that you weren't invited to a party, or how do we turn people down, especially in the South? We're known for our hospitality down here. We're known for trusting and welcoming first. At least I hope so. I've had that experience here. But
to a fault.
Now, yeah, to a fault. Yeah, and now it's just like me and Jacob feeling pressured to hug. Like if we were New Yorkers, we might have been like, nah, not today.
That happens out here. You would get the cold shoulder for a week.
Yeah,
like, what the hell?
But here we don't know how to do that. Yeah, don't get off. What are you talking about? But we can't do that here. It's just not. We're always the first to welcome. We're the first to say, yes, I can help you. Yes, you can come to my party. And then we complain about that on the back end. We fuss about it.
Yep.
We sit there after they've gone and go, why'd that guy have to come? Didn't want to invite him in the first place. It's true. It's what we do.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's all about the people, and you got to be able to start saying, no, I love you, you're great, but I just don't know where you've been. I can't
Yeah.
trust the situation.
Right. And so Ashley and I are having this conversation about my mother, because she really wants to come. She's like, I'm traveling this summer. I'm going to travel to the Biltmore. I'm going to travel to your house. I'm going to travel up to Minnesota. I'm going to travel everywhere. And I'm like,
Why
Mom,
this summer?
yeah,
Yeah.
great question. So I will tell you this: she had plans this summer to go to London with her sister, and that's obviously been canceled, and rightfully so. However, now that she's canceled the trip, she's like, "Oh, I got bandwidth. I'm going to go everywhere else." And I'm like, "But
That's not the
you
point.
don't understand. I wouldn't invite you to my barbecue. I can't invite you to my barbecue anymore. Period." And here's the other thing. I did think about this while I was having this discussion with my mother is, something to let you into our circle, to let you in. That means that I'm going to have to speak on your behalf to everybody else in my circle. I'm going to have to answer for you to
You have to
everybody
put
else in
your
my
name
circle.
to it.
Right. Because that will be the root, that will be the origin of any kind of illness or any kind of virus.
Yep.
And so if I don't trust it, I've got to say no. And we've got to be okay with people saying no. But it's kind of hard, isn't it, to look at somebody and say, I'm sorry, I can't let you come to my barbecue.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's kind
Yeah.
of like vetting someone in a gang. Like, can you really look at someone and say, bro, you got to be really tight with someone,
Yeah.
You got to know them. You got to know them.
Yeah.
No, that's
Live or
really
die.
I didn't think about that. Like it's like when you recommend someone for a job and you have to vouch for them, and then you feel responsible for their every move
Yep.
for like at least 3 months. You're like, oh shoot, I gotta really
Until
make
you
sure
get that
they got
referral
it.
bonus.
Yeah, exactly. Once that 90 days
Till
is
the
up,
check
you're like,
clears.
they're on their own, baby. I got my
Yeah.
check.
Yeah.
But yeah, you feel like, okay, they're at this party. I don't know where they've been. I got to tell everybody, like, hey, my buddy's coming and he might be plagued. And then everybody's like, why would you invite your buddy? I'm leaving. And,
Yeah.
and then you end up, you and your buddy sitting around. You're like, great, I'm the only one that's going to get this disease. This is
You're
awesome.
the pariah.
Yeah, exactly. So I want, I mean, Jacob, you and I have talked about this before. We want to have a barbecue for a particular celebration, and just can we, should we, who gets to come?
Yeah.
I mean, is it something that's expected for what the occasion is? And you're like, well, yeah, it's always been, but this is different. It's a different time. We're in a different place. We've been telling people they can't do things that are completely natural because it's like, you can't. It's not the time to do it. There was a reason Jacob and I went to West Virginia and moved someone else's
That's
stuff
right.
all weekend. Because the people that own the stuff shouldn't be there, shouldn't be getting in the road. And for multiple reasons, you get in the road, you got to stop and pee. You can't hold it as long as we can. Or worst case scenario, you find yourself stuck on the side of the road or have an accident. Then you're in some random hospital.
Yeah, COVID-19 Central at that point. No, I think the worst thing that was said, and Stephen, I think you said it here. They asked, well, we just want to go up to say goodbyes. It's going to be a sentimental thing. And you looked at them as deadly serious as you could and said, I understand that and I appreciate that. But the world has changed.
Yeah, I did say that. I was tough. I did not expect
Wow.
it out of myself.
Wow.
But Jacob did not have to deliver that message. It was
I
me
did
sitting
not.
there. Yeah, it was me sitting there going, I can't let you. I'm sorry. It's like, I know you want to say bye to everything. I know you want to kiss your house and be gone by. I can't. You just can't do it. And I managed to talk him out of it. And it didn't feel good. I don't enjoy it at all. Could you imagine leaving a house you lived in for 30 years and not being able to have that closure or even go through your stuff to make sure what you're bringing is actually what you want? That's the worst. It's the worst.
Yeah.
But that's, hey, man.
But I also can't imagine stopping at a Virginia rest stop in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
And being in my late 70s, early 80s, that's just asking for trouble.
Well,
Yeah.
Lando, we could tell you exactly what that looks like because on the way back we were carrying a U-Haul with 5,000 pounds of stuff that we're gonna have to end up in a dumpster.
How was it?
But no, I stopped. I got out. I had my mask on. I had my gloves. I had my disinfectant wipe that I was wiping my hands with. The only thing
You
I
looked like
touched
a
was
terrorist.
I did. And the only thing I touched was the nozzle, and the only reason, and I touched it with the disinfectant wipe. I mean, I was serious about this shit. And I look around, and Steven, how many? Back me up here.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
maybe one lady that had a
Yeah.
mask on out of the dozen to 2 dozen people that
That
we
does not
saw.
surprise me.
No
Yeah.
glove, no nothing. I mean, they were just chilling, just doing their own thing. And I'm like, yeah, I appreciate you know, this is a decision you made, but I ain't living this way. Sorry, guys.
And
Yeah.
it's the theory you have that gas stations are one of our prime spreading locations because
do.
of all the door handle grabbing, all the all the bathrooms. Bathrooms are the worst because of all the aerosolized
Yep.
vapors. Like gas stations
Doorknobs,
have got
door
to be,
handles, everything.
yeah, they've got to be a huge vector for
Yeah.
this, and particularly people that have decided to travel. Why are you traveling? You should not be traveling. Like, particularly in distances you can't go in one move. Like you got to stop. You got to stay in a hotel. Like, stop! Don't do that. Like it's wrong. It's
There's just no
morally
need right now.
dangerous. It's not a good place to be.
Except for
Um,
the people that do need to. That's the problem, though.
Yeah.
Some people do need to travel.
You're right.
Granted, it's summer. People are traveling for leisure, obviously.
They
but
are.
I mean, you're right. There were a ton of truckers there, and that's their job is to travel. My argument
hell,
is not
they need a
against them.
safe spot.
Yeah, they do.
Exactly. And I felt like I didn't actually get to see any of the truckers on the backside of where did we stop? Wherever we stopped, the Supermart or Super K,
Circle K.
Tenga or Circle
Circle
K.
K.
That's what it was, Circle K. So I didn't get to see the truckers and how they were handling it, but what I did get to see was how the rest of the people were handling it. If that's what the rest of the people think of what's happening,
Well, huh?
it is what it is, and the truckers are just going to have to deal with it because they can't change everybody's perspective at that point. They're just going to have
Yeah.
to live with it.
Yeah. I mean, even every trucker was doing the right thing. They're going to gas stations where people suck.
It's just a matter of statistics at that point. More
Exactly.
people, more chance. It's that simple.
What are the actual chances? Like we talked about West Virginia. We were up there.
1
and
in 2.
is it 1 in 2 that you're exposed if you go out unprotected? Is that really it?
So,
Because I feel like that's
If
the
you
long
go
term,
out
I
without
think it's
a
gonna be-
mask, 1 in 2.
yeah.
But a mask is shown 40 to 50%. Outside of that, I mean, obviously it depends on and all that. But yeah, at this point, if you put a mask on, 50% minimum exposure chance reduced.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Just do it.
Just wear
But
the
yeah,
mask.
it depends.
Because I know people that have been traveling from West Virginia. I know this because I'm friends with a bunch of them on Facebook, and I'm seeing their Outer Banks beach pictures, and I'm like, what are you doing down here? Like, you went from like a safe haven in the mountains for all intents and purposes to crazy
The best
town.
In the world to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
oh, yeah.
You're in the this is the only time people wish they lived there. Like you are doing it, and now
Ridiculous.
yeah, and now you're coming down to North Carolina where our data-driven reopening approach is just driving the numbers as high as possible, and then we're pondering, well, maybe we should do gyms and pools next week. Our data-driven my rear. It's not happening. It's not.
Tell me how
not-
you really feel.
That's how upset I am. I'll tell you what.
You are right about West Virginia, though. That is the place to be. There's like 11 people a day, maybe at most, that you see get this. I mean, it's insanity how it is a bubble right now compared to the rest of this country.
Yeah, but you got to
Well,
go through
it's
so many places to get there.
Like
Yeah.
even
I'm sorry,
in,
Landon. What's that?
I was just saying Eastern Washington, like the spikes are happening everywhere now. Out here
Yeah.
too, Eastern Washington, it is starting to explode, and it's
Yeah.
going to come back this way. And here in another month or two, we're right back in it.
Yeah,
Except
I
this
hear
time,
Oregon over there
one's
is
shutting
pretty
down.
hot.
Same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's all the agricultural industries now. California's in the same boat. Now it'll wrap through the Midwest in another month or so too.
Yeah.
So here we are.
This game.
Oh,
of
but don't
plague
call it a
really
second
sucks.
wave, guys. Don't call it a second wave, because if you do, you might get a phone call from somebody from the federal government telling you how wrong you are and how we've killed this thing and burned it to ashes, and there will be no second wave because we haven't gotten rid of the first wave.
Has someone gotten phone calls?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. But you're certainly right about no second wave. There is no second wave. Can't be one because we haven't gotten rid of the first wave. So we're just gonna keep riding this one. It's like, oh yeah, it's fine. We're gonna go ahead and get 30,000 people inside a Coliseum in July.
Pandemic part
whatever it is.
2, Boogaloo.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. Well, moving right along, let's get to some meat in here. This stuff. Let me see. What's a good button? I'll press that one. FDA revokes the authorization of hydrochloroquine as a medical treatment for this drug. Landon, hydrochloroquine. What was the key? Who was promoting that as a solution?
The president, I believe.
The president
of the United States.
Yeah,
Yes.
did he take a 2-week course of that drug?
Yeah.
2 weeks, right?
Didn't people die from overdosing on that prophylactically?
And also people died from like heart conditions that were caused by this.
Yeah.
Did you guys actually see this in any other headline this week apart from browsing Reddit? Because I definitely did not.
The revocation. I did see it, but it's in clearly biased media presentation. Yeah, it's the
little detail.
Yeah, the 3-letter organization that rhymes with Cox didn't report it that I'm aware of. But the other one surely did because they love this stuff. But yeah, they've revoked the authorization of it. The FDA has revoked its emergency use of the drugs hydrochloroquine and chloroquine for the treatment of COVID-19. Hydroxychloroquine was frequently touted by the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, and he claimed to have used it on himself. The FDA has concluded that based on new information and other information discussed in the attached memorandum, it is no longer reasonable to believe that oral formulations of HCQ and CQ may be effective in the treatment of COVID-19, nor is it reasonable to believe that known and potential benefits of these products outweigh their known and potential risks. That's pretty heavy-handed denial of
statement.
that. Yeah, that means a lot. And I mean, it's real good that they say this now because people with lupus use this drug as a treatment, and I don't know how many people are having trouble finding it, but there were reports of reports of people who take it for lupus not being able to get it for lupus because people were going out and requesting it from their doctors, and their doctors are like, cash money, sure, here you go, here's a prescription, I get to bill you more if I fill these. So yeah, that's pretty wild.
It's just interesting how far things have come from just a few weeks ago. It seems like when this was a potential wonder cure, and now just quietly being like shut down, like not just quietly, just like they're stuffing the dirty toilet paper down the toilet, like with their shoe and
well,
get down.
So.
It's like, come on, like, why are you doing this in the first place? How did we get this? How did we get here? Why?
Well,
I don't know. This is ridiculous.
To me, if we back up and look at what actually happened here, I mean, they gave this emergency use authorization, which, by the way, it's not an authorization. It's not an approval. It just says in emergency situations, you could use this if you deem it medically necessary.
They just took it off that list.
And they just took it off that list. It's like remdesivir, right, from Gilead. Remdesivir it works. They've got it as emergency use authorization, but there's not a ton of data that actually goes to the FDA that the FDA can go, you are actually approved to use it for this specific thing. And what's interesting is that hydrochloroquine actually reduces the effectiveness of remdesivir. So if you take them together, then you won't get any of the benefits from either one of the drugs. So don't do that either. So by the way, this is all just a PSA. I don't want you to think that we're leaning any way politically. I just want you guys to understand that hydrochloroquine is probably not your answer. You could still go to the doctor and request it if you really want it, but it's not the answer.
Yeah, I think that's important to note. That we're at a point where we can actually say no. And that's that's
Sorry, I'm delayed. My
okay.
audio was up tonight. I was going to mention just on the hydrochloroquine, hydroxychloroquine thing.
Yeah,
people who actually do need it, do not go and request it. By the way, do not go to your doctor and ask for it, because the people that do need it have a shortage, and that's a big problem right now. All these drugs, they're just gone for the people that need them.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
Yeah. Let's leave the drugs, the actual science that is proven to work. We'll put it there. But yeah, man, I tell you what, that was a lot of good news, a lot of good discussion. But what we do have is an actual email in the feedback this week. This one comes from our good friend in the chat, in Discord at twodorks.net/Discord, Headgamer, who we met in person at DragonCon last year. He's a super cool dude, managed to join us here. He does a podcast of his own called the Gene Pool Variety Hour with his son, who I know is Quillmeister in our chat room as well. But these guys are super cool. But it's a long email. I'm going to try and summarize it the best I can. But it's basically just him giving us his idea of what's been going on in his world and how he operates. He says, for a psychologist who makes a living talking to people, it's starting to wear on him. He said, the squadron I work with, because he's in the military, literally has detachment spread from Savannah, Georgia to Tacoma, Washington. So I'm more used to working with people via telework, but I'm always on base at HQ where I can see people and have human contact. As an introvert, I don't do well with big social groups, but I do thrive on those one-on-one visits in my office. We need the human connection, and for someone who makes their living on connections with other humans, sitting at home and doing nothing, typing on a screen, is leaving a hole somewhere inside me. I think a lot of us could probably commiserate with him on that. It's like a lot of people are energized by being around other beating hearts and stuck just, occasionally, chatting with somebody on video chat. It's not really the same thing. He says, on top of that, it's my sole role to be support to this squadron and their families, be available 24/7 for any needs. And I am, but for special tactics operators, it's hard enough for them to be willing to stop in my office as they walk by, much less to make a concerted effort to contact me and reach out via the interwebs. So in addition to feeling a loss of that human connection I was designed for, it feels like I'm letting my squadron down by lack of availability. I'm constantly looking for ways to justify myself via newsletters I send out, and podcasts, but all it just seems ancillary to what my main job is, the one job I'm not able to do right now. And he actually does a podcast I would promote that I listened to today called the Resilient Radio Podcast. They just started today for troops that's kind of helping to deal with COVID-19. Troops are used to getting shot at as a stressor, not being isolated as a stressor and quarantined like this. So it's pretty great. I highly recommend it. But he kind of goes on to talk about his son has to work at a nursing home where they have had outbreaks. Every day he comes home, so even if he could go back to base, they don't want him to come back to base because of the close proximity he is to a higher likelihood scenario of getting COVID. So it's just all upside down for him. So his main thing, or the end of his email says, so here I sit dealing with normal telework stresses, knowing that the squadron's starting to press forward and I'm just trying to hold on to it and support it from a distance. And that's really frustrating. Yeah. Thank you, Headgamer, for sending that in for sure.
I mean, this is
an introverted army therapist.
Yeah.
None of those would seem to go together, but that's awesome.
Right.
It's a tough situation though, because it's not. These are perspectives that I don't think we would have foreseen. Right? We wouldn't have foreseen this in February, and then all of a sudden, 3 months later, we're sitting here going, "Man, we're on the struggle bus, and here's why."
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that lots of people, this is the part that we haven't covered as a show very much, is the mental anguish derived from the isolation. Because I mean, we talked about it in like the first week. I think we skipped over one of the stories because it was just deep and heavy, and I don't want to get super into it now, but like we're talking about child support cases and stuff. We're talking about handicapped people trying to get support and help. We're talking about elderly
Actual
people.
isolation.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
for real
None of us are
life.
isolated.
No, and all three of us are happily married, as far as I can tell, with stuff to do and internet, and we're gamers. The last thing we could lose.
Things
Like,
are
oh,
okay.
at least I could freaking play WoW if I get really alone. You've got these ways to reach out to
Worst
people.
case, yeah.
Yeah, worst case, I fire back up the old methamphetamine mill and start
Yeah, I get
looting.
addicted to something else for another 2 years.
Exactly.
It's okay.
So if you are out there and that is an angle that you wouldn't mind exploring with us, you can do that by sending us an MP3
Yeah.
if you just want to record it on your phone. Tell us your story with your words, or you can write us an email and try to do it. None of us are prepared to be that person for you, but we're certainly interested in your take and where you're coming from on some of that isolation business, because I think none of us really have a true understanding of what that feels like. And I'd love for this show to kind of get an example of it for, so people could know and know ways to help more than anything. Like, what can we do? Because I will Discord video chat with anybody. If you're stuck and you're like, I just need another human, I'll be like, shoot, let's pick a time. We'll chat for a few minutes. But yeah.
Well, that is an interesting question, though. Have you guys completely missed the human interaction? And what do you think it's done to you mentally?
I've
I
missed going
have,
to work. Yeah,
absolutely.
Lando, you go first.
I was just yeah, I have absolutely. I really miss just being around random people, meeting people, talking to people. I don't care, just being around people. I'm a people person, and I've gotten into new hobbies to deal with that basically. So which is fine. I can do that. Thankfully, I have the personality where I can do both. I could be the introvert when I want or need to be, but at the same time, I really miss people and flying. Like, I want to be in a plane going to talk to someone. Like, this is bullshit. But I'm dealing with it. That's where it stands for me.
Yeah, like for me, I'm an introvert, but I'm an introverted extrovert, because I learned there are varying degrees of introvertedness. I'm shy, but I really love people, and I like talking to them, and I like talking at them. And
Certain people.
certain people. Some people, screw you guys. You know who you are. But no, really, I love talking to people. These podcasts are keeping me energized. Talking to Stephanie every day. I mean, even though she's here all the time, like I enjoy talking to my wife. So that helps.
How dare you?
I know. What's wrong with me? But no, I also wouldn't mind going back to the office. Like, we had our big virtual face-to-face. So, like, our team's remote everywhere in general. And every quarter or every other 2 quarters, we'll bring people in and we'll have those big meetings, a bunch of people hanging around. I really miss seeing the people I don't get to see very often, like in person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I see a lot of these people on calls and stuff, but it's nice to get together and go to lunch when everybody comes in. That was probably the first time I realized, like, I really feel bummed. And then Dragon Con coming up, having to pull out of that really bummed me out.
Yep.
Big time, which I love that movie. Got our time slot in panel, and that's a great panel, so everyone should go. If you go to Dragon Con, don't go to Dragon Con, but if you do, go see her. But it's just been kind of opportunities to be with people have really worn me down. I wish we still had them.
Yeah, they're gone to some extent. They're just poof, gone.
Yeah.
Now we'll see again. Try again next year.
Right.
Well, what I'm interested in is did you think 3 months ago in February or March, whenever you went, the last time you went and had a beer with a buddy? I mean, Stephen, we went and had iDubbbz and we saw Paul in February, right?
Yeah.
Do we think that was going to be the last iDubbbz that we had for the foreseeable future?
We were still calling this thing the Wu-Tang virus, Jacob. We weren't even taking it seriously.
We were calling it the Wu-Tang virus. We did.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad, isn't it?
How quickly things change.
Yeah, it changed really quickly.
We don't deal with this, man. SARS hit back in early 2000s, and we didn't even get a blip. Not a blip. Yeah. And we expected the same thing to happen. Oh, China's got another freaking virus. Freaking China with their viruses. You know what I mean?
SARS 2.0.
Yeah, we weren't ready. We just didn't know to care as much as we should have.
And by the way, that is one thing that's been bothering me. Every time I watched or see a soundbite of the president going, "The virus it came from China."
Yeah.
You know something? It was bound to come here regardless. The whole world's been dealing with it. It's not a Chinese specific virus. It is a virus that the world is dealing with. It's not one single country that, and China, by the way, is dealing with the resurgence now in
Yeah.
Beijing, and they're locking Beijing down. So yeah,
This is
they're
never
in a
going
tough
away.
situation. Yeah, they're in a tough
No.
situation right now.
Not until we
So-
have a vaccine, and it gets delivered to everyone who needs it. We'll see this happening, you know. And I mean, as people get it and become, you know, immune for the 5 or 6 months that they might be immune after they've had it, that will grow people going back out if they can. I mean, places have to be open, but okay. I know we need to end the show, Jacob. If you
we can keep going.
if you got COVID and lived through it, came out okay on the other side, would you return to normal?
No,
You wouldn't return to normal. You'd be like, F it, immunity, don't even care. What, Lando,
No,
where
I
are you
w-
at on that?
I wouldn't.
Honestly, yeah, I would. If I can get an antibody test or something to
Mhm.
prove that I myself have no way to infect someone else. Now, I say that as, you know, if something changes and all of a sudden this virus mutates and I'm not immune to it, then yeah, that's a problem. As long as I am not a vector, yeah, I'm good. I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
However, I got no, so it's a moot point.
Yeah. Right.
Everything else is closed anyway, you know?
Yeah.
So you raise an interesting point because I watched a video this week of a lady in New York who coughed on another lady, and she wasn't
Yeah.
wearing a mask.
I saw that too.
And her argument was that she has antibodies, bitches. And that's the reason why she wasn't wearing a mask. That's the reason why she was out and about. That was the reason why she felt comfortable coughing on another human being.
1%er.
Um, so I feel like, yeah, I don't even know where to go with this because
Yeah.
That's
just,
going to be the next badge of honor.
oh,
And
I've
then
got
I have
antibodies, baby.
Yep, I've got my antibodies. And you're not
Yeah.
going to see certain people with those ever, even if
Yeah.
that means, you know, a readily available vaccine.
Yeah.
So get ready. Here's the new way to social shame people.
Yeah.
Well, where's
that
your
guy's got
antibody card?
antibodies. That guy doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
You're not getting a job. Your kid's not going to school. Like,
Oh,
get
snap.
ready. This is happening.
Ugh,
Yeah.
It's too late for me to
Well-
be talking about school.
Well, so speaking of school, I was talking to a coworker
There
of
won't
mine.
be
in-
one this year. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I was talking to a coworker of mine just 2 days ago, and he's in France, and he was saying they've reopened and they're reopening schools this week. And I'm like, well, how's the virus doing there? And he
Wow.
was like, well, it's definitely a low simmer. There's really not much going on here virus wise. And they're reopening borders between countries, so you can travel in and out between
Yeah.
countries in Europe. There are a couple of countries that are isolated from that reopen in Europe, but that's neither here nor there. My question is, okay, so you're reopening schools, you're reopening borders, you're moving around. Before it was a 1 kilometer radius. Now it's like 100-kilometer radius that you can move. They're doing a lot of things in Europe that are pretty aggressive and pretty, I would say, more progressive relative to opening. What's going to happen in Europe?
Yeah.
Do we think they're gonna have a resurgence, a second wave? Because right now they're definitely just a very low simmer in Europe.
That's a good question. I mean, look at what is it, Sweden that never locked down and they've been pretty steady.
Yep.
I guess it depends on the culture.
It
and-
depends
and
on
the
yep,
density.
the country and the parts of that country. It's going to
Yeah.
be weird in Europe, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, no different than here. Let's be honest. It's just a bunch of different countries and people. It's just like here, but way, way, way smaller. I
Yeah.
think you're going to see it just spread back and forth like a ping pong ball going back and forth the table.
Yeah.
Just until a vaccine is here, it's going to just rampage around the world.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right.
I was actually talking to Ashley about a vaccine today, and she said, Jacob, I really don't know if I'm going to feel comfortable until a vaccine is coursing through my veins. And I
That-
just kind of
yeah.
went, okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's where
Same
I'm
thing
at.
until there's a way to prove and know.
Yeah, and I think there. I mean, I know Kelly's saying there's not going to be one, but there's a lot of research into getting this thing done, and as far as the last time I saw anything about it, they were saying that the way it mutates is not in a way that would affect the antibodies effectiveness against it. Because I think things mutate different ways. The flu, obviously, like it's protein strands or whatever. The H1N1, H1N5. You know, the antibodies are tailored to attack the particular. I'm gonna not talk about it because I don't know it well enough to have it speak intelligently about it. What I do know is that it's not supposed to be as bad to get a track of. The antibodies work on the virus. It doesn't really seem to mutate that bad.
So real quickly, let me address Kelly in the chat.
Yeah.
She technically, I guess you're right. It's the confidence level of whether or not antibodies stick around yet. But if you look at it, I think they've got pretty high confidence that the antibodies are going to stick around for several months. I think 4 to 6 months is what right now they've touted. Is that long enough? I don't know. I mean, is a year long enough? Is 5 years longer? I don't know what it's going to end up being. And on top of that, South Korea, I know I mentioned this last week, but South Korea actually has data that suggests that everybody that gets COVID-19 pretty much has the antibodies built up. So the original data that was coming out of China was a little bit erroneous in that regard. But now I believe that we're pretty confident that people that get COVID-19 do generate antibodies.
There you go. There's the facts.
That is good news.
Laying it down with the goats. We're going to bring you as much good information as we can bring you. And if you disagree with us, we will welcome your disagreement at staringatgoatspodcast@gmail.com, where you can email us and say, you guys are full of crap. I read this report, and send us whatever you want. And Jacob, being the mad scientist that he is, can review it because I don't know what most words mean. Lando might. Lando's got a good scientific brain on his head. I just talk on the internet.
My wife, at least.
Yeah, at least I talk to Stephanie. Everything comes through like, Stephanie, does this make sense? She's like, yeah. Being married to pharmacist is also a good
Unless
thing.
a computer emails me.
Pretty much. So, hey, if you got questions, if you got anything you want to tell us, staringatgoatspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at staring_goats. You can tweet us stuff there. That would be really cool. We don't have a lot of output on that Twitter account, but I would love to receive your tweets. Send me your tweets, and we'll have those factored into the show as well. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show, being here. Spread the word. Tell people that Staring at Goats is still actually concerned about the pandemic that's racing through the world and has no sign of disappearing anytime soon, despite Texas trying to be open, and Florida and Georgia and Alabama and the rest of the United States desperately trying to get haircuts and swim in swimming pools in the summer. Just let us know. Like, get in there. Tell us all you want. Give us some emails, and we'll see you next time on Staring at Goats. Staring at Goats. That's another one in the can, baby.
Woo woo!
We done made a show. Boop, boop, boop. We done made a show.
Sorry, my audio was so shitty tonight. I've got problems.
It's
My computer
weird. It's
has
yeah.
Yeah,
problems.
you did have a latency issue.
Yep.
Well, it was latency
Every like
and
15 or 20 seconds, it'll like slow down a bit and then speed back up. My
Yeah.
hard drive's full. That's the problem.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because you'll stutter real bad, and
Yep.
then you'll just kick back in. I thought it was your internet or Discord or whatever, and then your audio will be really quiet if anybody talks over you. It's like it's auto ducking for some reason. I don't understand that. Like if and then
Interesting.
it'll take a little bit for you to fade back in. So it's really strange. It's fine. I mean, I think everybody heard pretty much everything you said really well. But yeah, it's definitely something going on there, my man.
Yeah, I don't
Fire
know
up
what
the
I
old
need to do. I got issues.
methamphetamine meal.
Yeah.
Is that one of
Guys,
the titles?
You got to look at the titles. These are the best. I love these guys.
Where are they at? Where are them titles at? Titles. Oh, there we go. There's a link.
Real quick, I'm gonna hop off here. I need to get some more food. I only had a chance to eat a little bit earlier.
We'll go get
but-
food.
Go
show.
eat, man.
Great
Fine.
times. Glad to be back. Sorry about last week.
Yeah, we're
I'm
glad
back, baby. I feel
glad
better
you're
now. I'm not
back.
asleep. So yeah,
Good. Well done.
no more Benadryl for me.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.